So it's a good location. I think there's a lot of reasons.
That's
But people
amazing.
just drive through too, cross country.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so crazy to buy something for $52,000 and be generating $3,000 a month on some months in income. That's crazy. Welcome to the BiggerPockets Best Deal Ever show. I'm your lovable host, Ken Corsini, who with my wife, Anita, have flipped over 800 houses in Atlanta since 2005 and even have a show on HGTV. But this show isn't about us. It's about all the amazing real estate investors out there that are crushing it. It's about their stories, their best deals, how they sourced them, how they funded them, and what we can learn from their experiences. This is the Best Deal Ever show. Hey, this is Ken Corsini with the Best Deal Ever show, and today's episode is featuring my new friend, Zeona McIntyre. Zeona, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. Now, interesting fun fact, you're actually recording right now in Brandon Turner's studio. Is that right?
Yes. Does it look familiar?
It does familiar. He did not have the same moves that you do, but I do remember recording in his studio. Now, it was funny. Last time I talked to him in the studio, he looked to his right and bragged that he could see the ocean. So do you have an ocean view from where you are right now?
Yes, I do. And a pool view. It's very fancy here, I got to say.
That's amazing.
Good landscaping.
So what brings you to Hawaii? How did this all work out?
Yeah, so I grew up in Hawaii actually.
Oh,
and my sister's here, my family's here. So I come back about a month or two a year. So we're here for another month. It's awesome.
Oh man, that's awesome. And so you're on Maui then?
Yes, we're on Maui.
Crazy. And so you just called up Brandon, you're like, Brandon, I need a studio. I know you're right down the street. Let me go record with you.
I totally did. I was like, well, I'm pretty close on like how much stuff I can bring in my luggage. I was like, do I really want to lug around a mic and all this stuff? And I was like, Brandon's going to have all the tech. And so he does. Actually, there's like 4 cameras. It's a little like intimidating.
I'm a little intimidated that I'm getting out cameraed because I think I only have 4 cameras. And you might be the only guest that has matched my camera quantity.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so 11 months out of the year when you're not in Maui, where's your home market?
I am in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, very cool. Boulder.
Yeah.
That's right, because you're friends with some of the folks at BiggerPockets. So are you close to the office? Where's the office in relation to you?
The office is in Denver. That's probably 40 minutes away. Okay. And then, there's a lot of kind of BiggerPockets, early retirement people that live in Longmont, which is like a half an hour away. So it's kind of like a little hub. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you real estate investor types.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you have a slightly different model. You're not necessarily a flipper. Tell us a little bit about your model.
Yeah. So I'm an Airbnb-er. I do buy and holds, and then I turn them all into Airbnbs. So I generally buy something that's already been renovated and just furnish right away. And I want to talk about how you can find things right off the market that are like on the MLS and they still make really great deals. It's just about finding out where you are in the food chain of real estate.
Interesting. What's such a niche, and so many people are getting into it. I've dabbled in it now for a couple of years. I think I've got 6 here in Atlanta, and it was never on purpose. I never set out to get into the Airbnb business. But you have a house that doesn't sell, or even a rental that doesn't do that well, and we've converted into Airbnbs. And all of a sudden, they start performing really well, and we're like, well, crap. Let's start buying houses just for Airbnb. And I guess is that sort of how you got started?
Yeah, well, actually, I got started just doing Airbnb kind of just normally. So I had a friend who got laid off in New York, and he had this really expensive lease and was totally burnt out and said, you know what, I want to travel the world, but I've got this lease that I can't get out of. I heard of this Airbnb thing. I'm going to try it. And so after a year of doing it and telling me, you got to do this, he told me he made $50,000 off of an apartment he didn't own. And so I was like, whoa, okay, this sounds like the ultimate side hustle. And that was like 2012. So I've been in this game a while. But yeah, I started with a place that I was just renting and then rented and re-rented. So that they call that master leasing now. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's funny because I've seen even like some of the gurus out there with their courses on the Airbnb, and it's a phenomenal strategy. It's like you said, you rent somebody else's and you turn around and re-rent it out. But I'm sure you got to ink that right. There's some paperwork to make sure that you have the ability to lease it out. Is that your primary model now, or are you buying and owning?
I'm buying and owning, but I also do a lot of co-hosting or management. And so that's a great model for people too, because you can just cream off the top. So you take 25% of something that you don't own, that you didn't furnish, that you don't put any money into, and then you just make a bit of their profit right off the top. So it's pretty awesome.
So how
Yeah.
many of those houses do you manage right now?
So I manage 25, 6 of them are ones that I own.
Okay.
And so, yeah. And
Interesting.
they can be all over the world. I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I live in Atlanta. I can only do in Atlanta. But
Yeah.
no, so much of what we're doing with Airbnb is done online, all the communication and scheduling and stuff that if you've got, 2 cleaners and a handyman, you're good to go.
And are you doing that yourself then? Is your phone constantly going off with guests and reservations and questions and whatnot?
No, I mean, back in the day, I was really bootstrapping it. I even used to clean them all and everything. But
Oh, wow.
you get to a point where you're like, okay, I want to travel. I want to do some other things that I want to up level. So I started bringing people onto the team, but now I have 24-hour receptionists. I really don't hear about stuff until it's like pretty advanced. So
Okay. So
I've got
somebody else
some
is responding.
team members.
Okay,
Yeah.
good for you. So you've already scaled it up a little bit. Somebody else
Yeah.
is responding. And I guess like as long as you have a good cleaner, somebody that's turning over the property and you've got good communication, then you're kind of set, right? It's just communication at that point.
Yeah, I mean, what I find is it's a lot of people management, which I never really learned how to do. So I'm kind of learning on the go. But it can be a challenging thing. It's a little bit of babysitting, like, oh, did you really go do the thing you said you were going to do? And, making sure everybody talks to everybody.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the key is to be a super host, right? Isn't that like where you get really good exposure?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think being a super host is great. It doesn't always work out that easily for people that are doing lots of properties. I think the easiest people to become super hosts are the ones that live on the property and it's like their basement or their guest room where they can invite you to a meal and have fresh flowers in the home and they're like there to host.
Okay.
When you got tons of places, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to miss a clean. You're going to have a bad review. So I don't really worry about that as much. It's like sometimes we have super hosts, sometimes we lose it.
I gotcha. It only takes one bad one because it's funny here in Atlanta too. We were super hosts and then somebody threw a party and we called them out for throwing a party. They gave us 1 star and bam, just like that, we lost our super host. So it's not easy to maintain. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tricky. Well, so out of these 30 deals that you're managing, and I know a handful of them are your own, tell me about the one that is your best deal.
My best deal. Okay. Yeah. So I moved into the St. Louis market. My first property that I owned was in Boulder because that's where I started and what I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I moved in the St. Louis market, I got so excited about it that I thought, okay, I need another place. So it was doing so well. I bought a place in July of 2015 that I just looked right down the street and I bought the house 6 doors down. And this was a house that was just listed on the MLS and it had been sitting around for a long time. And I got it for $52,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So that alone, there are homes still in St. Louis that are that cheap. And I think people don't realize that.
Wow.
But yeah, that house now makes us like Airbnb seasonal. So it makes us between $1,500 and $3,000 a month, which is awesome.
Oh my gosh.
And long term, that home would probably only do $900. So even as a backup plan, this home is completely paid off. I bought it in cash. So it's, it's still a great backup plan for me. The numbers still work if that ever had to happen.
That's crazy. Okay. So this house was just sitting on the market. So you lived around the street in a neighborhood of $50,000 homes. I mean, was this a safe street? Is this a good area or is this
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a B neighborhood, you know? So it's like a little more working class and whatever. And every once in a while I'll get a review where they're like, oh, I didn't feel safe. But I think unfortunately, there is a lot of racism that you see on Airbnb. And so if people are like, oh, this is a Black neighborhood and I didn't know that going into it, they may say something. But I think it's completely fine. And it's really close to the college that brings a lot of people in. And it's really close to a really fun walking street with lots of restaurants. So I think they're really gentrifying the area and it's only going to get better.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you bought it for 52 from who? Do you know who was selling it?
I don't know. It was a couple in California, and I really felt like just communicating through my realtor, it really felt like they were kind of like distressed by this property. It was like they had probably a string of bad tenants. Maybe they had a lot of vacancy, and they were just like over it. And I also saw, like, because you can see the history in Redfin, that they had bought it in 2006, so like height of the market before the crash. They bought it for $96,000. So I thought, well, worst case scenario, it might go up. It has some room to go up.
Right.
And so they're losing a lot of money on it. So I just think for them all around, it was like a lose, 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 and they couldn't wait to just get rid of it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's my best deal ever. So I kind of like want people to see that you never know what you have, and really try to be creative and step back and see if there's other ways that you can spin it, because it's a wonderful house.
It's one man's
Yeah,
trash is another man's treasure, I guess, right? I mean, that's amazing.
absolutely.
So they were
Yeah.
renting it and having issues with the renters, and they were just sort of burnt out.
Yeah, I think, the long-term renters that you would get in that area might be a little trickier. You might be dealing with more like low income and maybe some issues with people paying rent. You might have issues with, drugs or neighbors or lots of things. So yeah, I could see that being a hard thing.
Yeah.
But with Airbnb, it's just a totally different market.
Yep.
We get really great guests. People are very respectful. And even if you did more of executive rentals or something at a month at a time or 3 months at a time, you could get nurses in there. You could definitely have something that would make sense, even if I decided I couldn't do Airbnb.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good backup plans.
For sure. I've noticed in our Airbnbs, I feel like at any given point in time, at least like a third of our inventory is somebody that's quasi, long-term, like a 3-month contract here or there, people that are building a house or they're in town for work. So we get a lot of that, which is great. That's great income because you're getting twice as much as you would on a year lease.
Yeah, it's sort of middle ground. It's like, you're giving them a little bit of deal off of the Airbnb price, but they're paying way more than market rate. And then they're easy, especially like doctors or nurses that are at work all day long, and then you're not cleaning. So it's like, it's a breeze.
That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you renting this place for nightly?
It really varies. So I use pricing software to optimize it. So it could be anywhere from the lowest of the low of being like $55 a night to $100 and something a night.
Okay.
So yeah, it varies based on season.
Well, then you're getting, your vacancy must be really low. If you're getting $3,000 months on occasion, I mean, that's only a couple nights out of the whole month that aren't rented.
Totally. Summertime is killer. People love it. They travel a lot in the summer. That seems to be the height all across the board.
So what's the draw, I guess, in that part of town? Is it close to downtown St. Louis? There's got to be something why people want to stay in that neighborhood, especially if it's B class.
Yeah. I mean, it's really the college, I'd say.
Okay.
So there's a big school there, Washington University. It's got about 15,000 students, and it's got one of the best medical programs in the country. So there's a medical hospital there, and then the other hospitals are not far away. Then the walking street that I told you about, it's got like a classic theater. So they have film festivals there. And then at the end of the street, there's a really cool concert hall. So people come in for concerts. And we're 15 minutes from the airport, another maybe 18 minutes from the convention center and all the like ball fields and stuff that are downtown. So it's a good location. I think there's a lot of reasons.
That's amazing.
People just drive through too, cross country.
Yeah. That's so crazy to buy something for $52,000 and be generating $3,000 a month on some months in income. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's great numbers.
If I'm going to add like one little thing, my favorite part of this story is that when we were buying the house, we were kind of in this little stressful spot. We found out we were going to buy it cash. So I thought, we can close in like 2 weeks. Then all of a sudden, right before we're about to fly out there, we find out, actually there's an issue with the title. And this is only my third house at this point, and I never had a title issue. I didn't know if that meant like, do we back out? Like, does this get cleared up in 24 hours, or is like this an ongoing forever thing? And my agent felt really confident that we'd be able to figure it out, but didn't know when. So I thought, okay, I own the house 6 doors down. Maybe I just fill their garage with furniture because I'm going out there anyway, and then move it in later. Or I can ask them, maybe they would let me rent the place. So I could just rent it and then re-rent it like I started with my Airbnb career.
Right.
And see if that would work. So we talked them into letting us rent it for super cheap. I don't even know how we came up with this number, but they were okay with $420. And it kept being pushed back. It was like, it's going to be a week. And then it was like 2 weeks. And then it was 4 weeks. And then it ended up being, I think, 2 months by the end of it. So $420 was all we paid. And we ended up making almost $1,600 the first month, and then another $1,800 the second month. So it really worked out great for us.
So you cash flow positive before you even owned the house.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, wow, if we don't even buy it, I'm happy. We can walk away.
Yeah, really. Well, that goes
for the furniture.
That goes back to the model we were just talking about. I mean, somebody where you find a distressed seller and then just put terms on it, either owner finance it or lease it for some small amount, and then turn around and master lease it out through Airbnb. I mean, that really is a good business model.
Totally.
Makes me think I should take a harder look.
I think a model you might like is like they do these pop-up hotels. So it's a master lease model that people are doing where they go to a new luxury building, and usually a luxury building can't like fill all their units right away.
Yep.
Right. So right away, maybe they're 70% occupied, and then it takes them a few years to get the rest out.
Yep.
So you go to them and say, hey, we'll take all your empty units. And then next year we'll move out of, 10 of them. And then the next year we'll move out of 5, and then we'll be gone. And they love it because they get rented, guaranteed rent. And then you have this like pop-up hotel business where you're making killer money on luxury brand new rentals. And then you just move the furniture to another unit.
It's funny. Just a couple months ago, I was in Phoenix and stayed at one of those places. And I didn't realize at the time, I thought I was actually booking and then I realized that everybody around me lived in the place.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it was. And it's funny, I guess if you get Airbnb, you understand it. You can, any sort of available unit, you take it, you negotiate it, and you just lease it out.
Absolutely. But yeah, there's companies that do really well with that model. So
crazy. All right. So you funded this yourself, right? So this was just a cash deal?
I did. Yeah. It's hard to get that little of money.
Yeah,
if you try to get a mortgage under 100,000, like the interest rate is actually higher than a regular mortgage.
Well, there's a lot of lenders that won't even lend below a certain amount. So,
yeah.
There's some non-conventional, 30-year term money that's out there now. That's still not, maybe 5-6%. It's a little bit higher, but it's still available. So is your plan then just to keep your cash tied up in it, or is there any plan to refi out of it?
It's such little cash. I don't know what I would do. I think it's fine where it's at. I'm happy with that. I think I'm not traditional real estate in the sense that I'm like, oh, I want to leverage everything. I'm still in that like early retirement FIRE community where I'm like, I want to be financially independent. I want to have all my places paid off eventually and just live off of that income and be chill.
Yeah.
So not going for 100 doors.
Gotcha. I don't blame you, man. Sometimes
it gets complicated. Yeah,
it does.
Totally.
It all of a sudden starts occupying way more of your time than you anticipated when you get that many doors. So somebody's listening to this and they love the concept and they don't know where to start. And you've obviously got so many doors that you've managed now. You've got a handful of your own. What advice would you give somebody that's interested in getting into this space?
List what you have. So everybody lives somewhere. You could be living in a van and you could rent it out in someone's driveway. I've heard of people renting out their backyard and putting tents in it. Like you can do all of the things. Your face was so good right there.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
it's like
$45
the van down by the river.
a night.
I live in a van down by the river on Airbnb.
Totally. People love that stuff. They want a unique space. So I tell people just get the experience. Even if you build out a listing and you don't publish it, you're learning how to use the site. If you're going to eventually co-host or something like that. But yeah, just list what you have, go away for a weekend and see if you like it. Because that's the easiest way. You don't have to invest anything.
And so I've got a treehouse in my backyard and my kids never use it anymore. I'm wondering if I should throw that up on Airbnb.
Tree houses are one of the most popular listings.
Are they really? $50 a night? That's good.
Make it really cute. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, that's good advice. So, and then also if somebody was interested in what would it look like to go out there and find a house for rent and put a master lease on it? If somebody was because that's a really cool concept that a lot of people don't understand. Where would you direct somebody to learn more about that?
I think it's easier than people think. It's really just coming up with a couple of really good terms that would be hard to say no to, and having like a cover letter that you shoot out to maybe, 50 places on Craigslist or something. You're definitely going to get a couple of bites. But things that I tell people to do is say, we're going to do a long lease, 2 or 3 years. We're going to guarantee rent increases. So find out what's normal for your area, maybe 2 to 4%, and then just weave that in there. So no vacancy. They're getting guaranteed rent. They're getting increases. Tell them, the professional photos, they can use them if they're going to sell at some point. You can say, oh, it's professionally cleaned. You can say, we will pay for anything that's repairable under $200. There's little things like that where you're like, we are going to take care of this place.
Yeah.
And people are stoked on that because there's so many places that just turn into like college slums and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So you'd be surprised. People are happy to say yes.
Thanks for listening to the Best Deal Ever show, brought to you by BiggerPockets. If you've been energized, entertained, or enlightened by today's show, please feel free to hit the subscribe button. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Ken Corsini, or check us out online at redbarnhomes.com. And don't forget, one man's best deal ever may be the inspiration you need to create your next best deal. So, hope to see you on the next episode.